right, and we are back to our painting. Everything is nice and dry, and today we are going to go ahead and add in our foreground details. So I'm going to add a couple trees over here on this island and a couple over here, fill it in with some grass, rocks, and a couple of shrubs. And as I had mentioned before, we'll go ahead and put in some mountains in the back. So actually, let's go ahead and start with those mountains in the back. Remember how I said that brown and blue will make gray? So I kind of want some brownish bluish mountains with a little bit of purple, and I don't want them to be too, let's see, I don't want to be all there. So we're going to take just the tip of the brush, and I'm going to follow and go up and down, and up and down. So make a nice little jagged line. And then we're going to come in, and I have wet the brush again and added little pigments. And just like we were doing down here with the ground, I'm only wanting these pigments to stay within this line that I created for my mountain range. But because I have all these trees and stuff, that I'm not wanting the mountains to just kind of sit, this part of my brush right here, the pigments are more towards the tip, and down here is just wet. So I'm trying to keep those pigments up towards the tip of the brush and bringing that wet bottom part of the brush down to hopefully blend these pigments that I'm adding in here in a way that doesn't interrupt that tree line too much while still giving our mountain some definition. So just kind of like we had done with the clouds, I'm going to put pigments down in certain spaces but not everywhere, and create where we got some valleys and crevices. And again, try and make sure that those pigments are not bleeding too much into the tree line and creating a nice clean line there. Dragging the bottom of my brush with the tip of it, lining the edge of where I want my mountains to be. Okay. The majority of my pigments are going to be located up here towards the peaks of my mountains. Right. So I just keep going back and dipping my brush into the brown and the blue. Sometimes I get a little more brown than blue, but that's okay. You just kind of move those pigments around. And remember that when we're looking at the mountains off in the distance, they have so many different shades and shapes and colors that are coming off of them, depending on how that sunlight's hitting them. And you know, we've got this lovely moody sky. I'll add a little more blue into that. There we go. This lovely moody sky. So in theory, we should have like shadows of clouds also playing off of the peaks of the mountains, and just kind of push those pigments around, and I'll just follow that curve. So there's really no right and wrong way to put the pigments down. Again, this comes like the more you practice with it, and you just kind of become intuitive with how you want your layout or where you'd like those pigments to flow and how you want to create certain spaces of shadow and light effect. The more you start to work at it, the more that you will develop your own technique and the way that you will be putting down the paint. No two artists are alike, thank God. We have so many wonderful things to share that are uniquely our own. I always want to try and encourage like people, please don't try and make what it is that I'm making, like it's not ever going to make it to the T. Just try and take what I'm showing you here and translate them into your own work, and take the time to practice and play around and be forgiving for yourself. Like remember, like we all have to start somewhere, and if you're not used to working with the watercolors, it's okay to mess up. Trust me, there's plenty of times where I look at my work and I'm just like, that is no good. I don't like that at all. But I also refuse to give up on my work. I believe that we eventually find ourselves in a space where we can be very forgiving with ourselves and what it is that we are creating and doing. So when we do make a mistake, rather than seeing it as like, oh, how do I come back from this? I'm never going to be able to, like, it's ruined. No. It's an opportunity to turn something into something that you maybe never had considered before. Like, my favorite thing about making mistakes when it comes to painting and art is it's a challenge. It's an opportunity to turn what could otherwise be like, oh, such a heartbreaking moment. Like, you make a mistake in your painting, you have this idea of the way that you want it to turn out, and then all of a sudden it's not doing what you want. Like, it's so easy to get frustrated and discouraged with like ourselves and like our abilities, and we forget how to forgive ourselves and to tell and remind ourselves that we're also just learning, and when we learn we are going to make mistakes, but it's only through making those mistakes that we have the opportunity to actually grow from them and to learn how to correct them and to work with them so they're no longer a mistake, but become like this awesome part of our painting that like we didn't see before because we had this preconceived idea of what we were expecting and trying to create. Alright, so remember we're trying to do our reflections. So that is not close to the color of that tree. Here we go. Maybe that's a little better. I'm also reminding myself that what we're seeing here is more of the ground with the tree behind it. Because the tree's not all the way here, it's down here. So I just want to be able to create this space here. And go down with this one. Oh, that one's a better brown. We're going to add a little of that in there. Okay. And okay, I'm going to use that bottom of the brush here. Push those pigments around. Trees on that end, and I know that this paint over here was pretty wet, so I'm going to kind of just use the bottom of my brush and scrape and do some like short little motions, and I'm going to scrape away the pigments and some of like that first layer of paper here and make some rocks. Okay. Alright, so I'm happy with that little island, and then over here, alright, I'm going to add, I'm going to come up with more of a purpley shrubbery. So this space right here is looking a little funky to me because of the way that the water had puddled. going back to what I was saying about mistakes and, you know, learning how to work with the space that we have, and looking at what it is you have and looking at what you don't like, look at what you can add to it to make it look as you would like it to look. Okay, now what I'm doing to kind of dabble in this bush here is I'm not looking to fill it in, and I'm doing these short sort of sporadic brush marks. I'm coming back and filling in my pigment and doing just sort of like branches and leaves, a short shrubbish thing. And then this space right here looks like it makes a good rock. So actually do a couple here. And when you come into the grass, we'll do some short brush strokes where the grass should be. And the more you kind of push those pigments around, sort of start to fade out a bit. You can use that fading to make that grass start to fade and fall into each other. So, we got ourselves a little bush. Fill that in rather nicely. I think we'll put another tree here, see how that looks nice and dry. Alright, so let's do another tree. I'm using watercolors that were left over from my students. The yellow is all kinds of messed up, and I can't count the number of times I've had kids coming up to me, Miss Giles, can I get a new set of paints? My yellow isn't yellow anymore. I'm like, you should see my set of paints at home that I use. Alright, yes, I should go ahead. We'll follow along the line. Alright, yes. You should always put your line down so you have something to follow along. My apologies. I get a little taken off with my trees. I've been doing them for so long. They just kind of know what it is that I want to do when I start getting going on them. But yeah, when you put that line down, it kind of helps you gauge where your branches should be coming out, and gives you that line to follow as you create that triangular Christmas tree shape. Now, I know that some people have a tendency to leave like trunks on their trees. That's totally fine. If you're a person that likes to leave trunks on your trees, put some trunks on your trees. Ain't nobody gonna stop you here. But my trees always go down all the way down to the ground because I like to get low with my tree branches. Anyway, and we're back down here in this area. Okay, you see how this has like this cool grassy effect? I kind of like to make that into more of a bush, but I'm working on kind of creating some stones here. Now, the pigment on my brush is starting to dry out, so we're getting sort of this scratchy thing that is more of like a dry on dry technique, which is nice for creating brushy areas, organic spaces, grasses and such, because it's a real dry, scratchy space. So we'll go ahead and allow that to run out. And, you know, I always like to wet my brush when I go back for more paints. Like I said, I really like the space here, so I don't want to add so much to it, but I kind of add another tree in here. And because, you know, I don't like my trees to be alone. My trees all have friends. Trees should have friends. Don't plant trees by themselves. And as I move down, I find these like darker spaces. I'll take my brush with those pigments that are kind of like starting to dry out. Create some like grassy spots. Right. And you know, I don't do do these often. I'm not the biggest fan of these, but we'll go ahead and put one in. The sticky shrub. Let's have him look. So it's just gonna be a series of thin lines coming off of each other. And the thing that you want to keep in mind when it comes to like making sticky shrubs is keep your lines thin. And like make sure they build off of each other, but keep your lines thin. Alright. Looks good. And alright. Okay. I think just to add so it doesn't look so lacking here. Ugh, I have to admit I'm not the biggest fan of this green that's in here. Please don't just put that green down. Do me a favor, please mix it with purple or blue or brown or black or yellow. Just don't let the green remain just that boring green. Please don't let the green remain boring green. So institutional. Okay. Alright. I think that I'm happy with the way that this has turned out. I think I'm gonna see if I can take this pigment over here. So you can also take your brush and clean off all the pigments and then come back to your painting and run just a wet brush over where you already have some pigments on your paper, and you can kind of push them around like so, and that's another great way of creating rocks. You just kind of create these like little round spaces within your painting. Some nice looking rocks. And we'll come over here and do the same. And remember, I had also put like all of these grasses down in here too, so we can bring those pigments up. And maybe we'll come in and fill in some of those channels. Alright. So it's really just about layering when it comes to the end. Like layering your pigments and layering your ground coverings and grasses and working with those darker spots and lighter spots and pushing things around. Just kind of get an idea of where you'd like your pigments to be. We got a rough landscape. Some rocks kind of make it out. I want to go there. That works for me. I like rocks. I have like a rocky landscape. I live in a rocky, like close to the Rocky Mountains. Why not have rocky mountainous landscape with lake? Seems good to me. All right. So there we have it. We got our little thing. It's a mess on it. Okay. I'm happy with the way this turned out, so I'm going to go ahead and sign it real quick. And you want to make sure that, you want a good thick flow, but not too much liquid. Water on your brush, a good amount of pigment when you go to sign. And your signature is something to work on. I think my signature has changed like 8 times before I finally settled on this one. And this one will even change from time to time. I guess just depending on my mood, but yeah. We're in August, and the year is 2023. Okay. Thank you all for painting with me. I hope you've enjoyed these 2 sessions, and I hope that you have gained and gathered some good skills and techniques, and hopefully are on your way to creating your own watercolor masterpieces. I would love to see them. If you've got a chance or would like to share them with me, reach out to me. That would be fantastic. And if you have any suggestions or concerns that you would like to share with me, by all means, please feel free to leave a comment. And as always, please like and share with your friends. And thanks again for tuning in with me on my station, D. Giles Art Styles. Until next time, art friends.